Well, good day and welcome to you. It is August the 29th, and I hope wherever you happen to be, well, you're having a great day. Now, if you're new to Search for Signs, my name is Gary Willing, and here on this channel, we talk about the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. We take a deeper look at why the Masters and the Teacher are coming back now. Why is it important that they do so at this particular time? And of course, what does it mean for you and everyone else that they're doing this? In this video, I actually have one comment and a few questions to answer. And of course, if you have a question you'd like to ask, I suggest just posting your question about this topic in the comment section of this video. You can always email me at searchforsigns@mail.com. I don't think I need to explain how to comment on a YouTube video. Most people know how to do that. Now, the comments that come my way typically are religious in nature. Not all, but most of them are. And most of them, of course, are quite against what I'm talking about, which is fine, right? Goes with the territory. This particular comment kind of fits that bill. Now, I don't see this information really in a religious way. I'm not a religious person. I'm not trying to change your religious beliefs, but we can talk about it because even though I don't think the person who commented about this is going to listen to this, but maybe it can give all of us who are willing to listen to this information and have a more open mind a better understanding of it. So we're going to do that. Now, if you also just want to, if I can, indulge me for just a second. If you're new to this information, you want to know more, you want to see if it's true for yourself, I do recommend checking out the links that I provided in the description portion of this video. And I always recommend checking out the Share International site. There you can see a lot more information about miracles, about Maitreya's emergence, about his priorities than you can anywhere else. You can even see videos from Benjamin Creme, who was the originator of this information, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Benjamin Creme because that's one of the questions I'm going to answer in this video. So hopefully you'll stick around and hear that. Now, the comment, of course, is about Maitreya being the Antichrist. It's, like I said, it goes with the territory, and it's to be expected. Now, I will say this, though. It's kind of interesting to note that I can't remember the last time I had a comment about somebody thinking Maitreya is the Antichrist. It's been a while. In fact, I'd have to go back and kind of hunt and try to find it. I actually had two this week, but I'm going to address this one. The other one is pretty much the same, but this one comes from Tribulation Saints Baptist Church. Maitreya is the Antichrist prophesied in Revelation 13, chapter 13, excuse me. Jesus Christ is the one true God and the one true Messiah. Okay, so the second part, Jesus Christ is the one true God and the one true Messiah, I have absolutely no quarrel with. I don't even have a quarrel with the first part of it, but definitely don't have a quarrel with the second part. That's your belief. That's your belief. And, it's always my fondest hope, but I definitely don't have a quarrel with somebody if they're trying their best to live by the teachings of Jesus, even if they think Jesus is the only true Son of God, right? Now, my view of Jesus 2,000 years ago and today is much different than a fundamentalist Christian would have, but I can see why you would think that, right? Now, in terms of Maitreya and the Antichrist, or what the Antichrist is, and Revelation chapter 13, let's talk about that. Now, I've read chapter 13 in Revelation many times, and there are people from time to time, even the other person who commented about the Antichrist said it, well, it clearly states that Maitreya is the Antichrist. Does it really? Because I've read that many, 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 many times, and it just seems like symbology to me. There's nothing literal or clear about it, really. But let's talk about the Antichrist from the esoteric perspective about who and what the Antichrist is and its function, okay? The Antichrist from the Ageless Wisdom Teachings that John spoke about in Revelation was never meant to be interpreted as an individual. He was writing in symbology about the future that he saw for humanity. And I'm of the belief, and I seem like I'm the only one, if you believe Revelation, but look at it from the eyes of love and hope, it is the most hopeful book in the Bible, really. If you look at it with from the eyes of fear, then it's a very scary book to read, because people think it's the end times. Well, he wasn't talking about the end times. He was talking about the end of a time and a beginning of a new time. Now, the Antichrist, from the Ageless Wisdom Teachings perspective, is nothing but an energy. It's a deliberate energy that's sent out to destroy the old ways of thinking and relating to allow a new way of thinking and relating. And kind of a, symbology on my own right, but if you look at a way a farmer plants his fields, right? Well, they do crop rotation, so they don't, use all the nutrients in the soil up, right? And so they have to plant for a certain amount of time in this field, and then they'll go over to another field and plant, and then they don't grow anything in that other field for a year or two or 3 or 5 or whatever it is. And they do that, and they kind of rotate it so that they, like I said, so the nutrients in the soil, don't diminish so much that they can't grow anything in it. Now, the year or 2 or 3 that it's neglected and they're not plowing through those fields, well, of course, a lot of stuff's going to grow in there, right? Weeds, thorns, bushes, saplings. There'll be probably limbs that blew in there when there was a storm or something like this. There's a lot of crap in there. And the only way that a farmer can really use that land is they got to get rid of all that rubbish. And the way they've done it for centuries, they just light the field on fire, right? And all that stuff is kind of destroyed. And if you're a part of the rubbish, let's say you're one of the plants or the shrubs or the thorns in the field, or if you're an animal living in the field at the time that the farmer lights it on fire, well then shoot, that sucks. You know what I'm saying? And just like if you're living during the time of the Antichrist, it's awful. I mean, it's awful, 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 but it serves a purpose. And just like with the farmer analogy, as the field is destroyed, the fire's put out, then they plow the field and plant the crops, and then the crops can grow. And it's the same kind of, the theory is behind the same kind of deal with the energy of the Antichrist. So the energy of the Antichrist is sent out into the world to destroy the old ways of thinking and relating, to allow a new way of thinking and relating to flourish. The beasts in the Bible that John predicted to be the Antichrist, or the beasts, whatever you want to look at it, he was talking about this energy that was going to be released over thousands of years at certain intervals, not at one time, not within a few weeks of each other, and not, like I said, certainly not an individual like some people are expecting. But people personify everything in life. They personify animals. They personify the way that sharks are. Sharks are good. Shark's a shark. I'm not going to try to intellectualize with a shark, And they look at God and they try to personify God in the same way, but God is the creation behind all of cosmos. He's not a person, he's beyond that, right? Just as this energy is not a person either, But to look at it from what John was trying to talk about, according to the Ageless Wisdom Teachings, the energy of the Antichrist was first sent out during the time of Nero. And Nero actually was alive at the same time that John was alive. So he was talking about one of the beasts in the Bible was during his time. And then that allowed the old ways of thinking and relating to die off, and allows Christianity to flourish. And it wouldn't have flourished over the last 2,000 years, and the energies that we used in Pisces would not have been able to been utilized by humanity in the way that they were, had it not been sent out through Nero at that time. And then about 100 or so years ago, or 80 years ago, whatever it is, my math is off when it comes to trying to remember when World War I and World War II took place, but I guess World War I was started about 100 years ago, or just before 100 years ago. Anyway, and then World War II was, of course, in the 30s and 40s. Now, the energy of the Antichrist was then re-released again during that time, mainly during World War II. And it was sent out through 3 groups of people, not one individual. So it was sent out through the militarists in Japan, the fascists in Italy, and of course the Nazis in Germany. Now you could say, on some level, that Hitler was the poster child for the Antichrist because he was the strongest personality in that group, but he was not technically the Antichrist. It was the energy that was sent out through those 3 groups was the Antichrist energy. It was nasty, it was destructive, and of course I wouldn't have wanted to live in Europe during that time either, you know what I mean? But it did just what it did back during the time of Nero, and it's still doing its work, kind of. It destroyed the old ways of thinking and relating of the last 2,000 years to allow new ways of thinking to flourish. And then, as John predicted again, in another, he said the beast is chained back for a time and a half, and then will be re-released. Well, that's, the time and a half is the age of Aquarius plus half of the age of Capricorn, which is about 4,500 years. Well, no, I take that back. It's about 33,000, 3,500 years, whatever it is, give or take a century or two. So, over the course of when Nero lived and when that beast was released to the final beast that's re-released in the middle of the age of Capricorn, well, that's 25, 5,000, 6,000 years. Not a few weeks. So it's a much broader time frame, but that's where the Antichrist energy is. That's its function. And it's funny, like this person capitalized the Antichrist with a capital A. Well, if you read the Bible, it's not capitalized. It's a lowercase a. Satan is not even capitalized unless it's at the beginning of a sentence. And Satan is not a person either. It's a personification of the selfishness within all of us, is really what Satan was in the Bible from the Ageless Wisdom perspectives. But the Antichrist, like I said, is just an energy that's used. It's destructive. It's a will energy. It's coming from the will of God, but it destroys the old ways of thinking and relating. And the people. Now, here's the thing. Okay, so the people who are devoting a lot of time to trying to quote unquote call out Maitreya as the Antichrist, or call out this person as the Antichrist. And if you go through YouTube and search for yourself, I'm telling you, if you just search Antichrist, you're going to see all sorts of opinions about who this person's the Antichrist, that person's the Antichrist, and blah, 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 blah. There's never a shortage of videos of people talking about that. Some mention they think it's Maitreya. Now, Maitreya has never claimed to be the Christ. In fact, he says he doesn't prefer those terms. He just prefers to be known as the teacher. But anyway, so he's not claiming to be the Christ, and some of these other people aren't claiming to be the Christ either, like Barack Obama, even Donald Trump, who I don't agree with politically, but he's not the Antichrist. I had a roommate back in the 90s who thought for sure that Ronald Reagan was the Antichrist, because Ronald Wilson Reagan, those three names have 6 letters in each, 666. So he was convinced it was Ronald Reagan. And people think all sorts of individuals are the Antichrist. Typically people who they're either extremely jealous of, or they are don't agree with what they believe politically or religiously or something like this. So therefore they must be the Antichrist, because they don't believe in what I believe, right? But there's no real truth to it. But the positive, if there's a silver lining in people thinking in trying to find the Antichrist, even though the Antichrist has already come and gone, is we don't really understand real humanity nature. And I don't mean human nature, I mean nature of humanity. How connected and how unified we really are at the higher spiritual levels. And we also don't understand the impact on the hearts and minds of all of humanity when an avatar at the level of Maitreya starts to re-enter the lives of humanity in the way that he's done over the past 40 some odd years. When he went into London, he started to create this closer contact with all of humanity, even just by being in London and not speaking before the people. Now he's speaking before the people on TV, which is probably even having a more profound effect. But just him living in London for the few decades that he lived in London and he was working behind the scenes was having a profound effect on all of us living here on planet Earth. One of the ways that it affected people is those people who were hopeful for the future, they started to have more hope for the future. Those people who were fearful for the future and were thinking that all sorts of wickedness was going to happen because of their own misinterpretations of Revelation, well, it started to flare that up. But the reason why people are looking for the Antichrist and the way that they're looking, actually, is because in their heart of hearts, they're actually sensing that the Christ is already back. And that's really the esoteric truth of it. So I understand why people think that he's the Antichrist and lash out in the way that they do and all sorts of stuff. And they believe 100% that he's the Antichrist. They will be proven wrong in the end. I can't prove it, but they'll be proven wrong in the end. But I always ask this question to people who, not to challenge them, but just to get them to think about it, right? If you think Maitreya is the Antichrist, I just ask this question, and just, if you think he's the Antichrist, maybe this questions will mean something to you. I guess maybe, have you seen him and recognized him on TV yet? Probably not. Have you heard his words? Have you experienced his love and his wisdom yet? Probably not. Have you met him in person? Like I have? Probably not. Let's see. Have you even taken the time to really look at his teachings and just try to look at his priorities for humanity, the need for peace, the need to end hunger, and just look at it at that level? Have you done that? Probably not. In fact, this person who commented more than likely didn't even listen to the video that what I said in the video. and therefore is probably not going to be listening to this either. So I'm not talking to this person. I'm talking to those people who are willing to listen to these videos to try to give a better understanding of who and what the Antichrist is, and who and what Maitreya is, and who and what Maitreya is not, which is the Antichrist. But those are the questions that I ask, and I haven't had anybody really tell me, oh yeah, I've recognized him on TV. Oh yeah, he's definitely Antichrist. Or I've met him in person many, many times. Oh, he's never, not once. In fact, those of us who I know who have met him in person think the exact opposite of that. They actually know he's the awaited teacher, based on his love, based on his wisdom, based on how much he's changed their life by just smiling at them, And we don't know, we won't know until we see Maitreya and recognize him on TV on the day of declaration, just how much of a spiritual giant this being Maitreya really is. But we will probably never really know the impact that it had on all of us by him just re-entering our lives in the way that he did. But one of the evidence, from an esoteric standpoint, one of the evidence of Maitreya being in the world and being who he is the fact that so many more people since he came on the scene, even though they don't know who he is, are already assuming he's the Antichrist, or looking for other people to be the Antichrist. And it wasn't like that 35, 40 years ago. There wasn't as many people that were that concerned about the Antichrist coming back. Now it's like all over the place, So now the where this fits into all this, okay, this is something I also want to talk about, is the Antichrist energy, of course, destroys old ways of thinking and relating. Now the energies of Pisces brought about a powerful, potent individuality. Humanity's not very advanced at this moment in time, and certainly wasn't advanced at the start of the Piscean energy, but was able to use that energy to some degree to change itself. And ideas and thoughts and words and, like be the best and, live your dreams and, I think for that, there I am, or whatever, whatever you want to think, all stem from the energies of Pisces. Those thoughts did not exist 2,000 years ago. And if we could take a time capsule and go back, or time machine and go back to the start of the age of Pisces, and you told somebody, you should just be an individual, man, be yourself. They'd be like, what the heck are you talking about? They had no idea what that would even mean. It took the energies of Pisces to do that. Now, where this information fits in, and I always say at the beginning of this, why it's so important that the Masters and Maitreya are coming back at this particular time is because the structures that were built under the light and the energy and the influence of Pisces, the economic, political, social structures, the healthcare structures, the military structures, were all built under that energy of Pisces, that powerful, potent individuality. Those structures were built to serve the few at the expense of the many, without exception. And that's why they're dying, because the energies of Pisces are totally different. Aquarius are totally different than the energies of Pisces. They're almost in direct opposition of it. And so what would have happened if these masters didn't come back is there would have been a total destruction of society itself. We would have been living in anarchy for a time. But then there wouldn't have been any other new structures in place to start to cling to. So then it would have been total anarchy. And for God knows how long. And now we have the ability to destroy ourselves in a swift second by all the nuclear weapons that we have. It would have been disastrous. So that's why they're coming back to help us start building the new structures. But it comes with, and it starts with, the principle of sharing, where governments will start to look at the need to take the excesses of resources that they are not using and giving it freely to other nations. If you look at the link in the description I put in about the Marshall Plan, that's kind of how it would look, but on a global level. And the Marshall Plan, just like the global Marshall Plan that will take place, brought about peaceful, goodwill relationship amongst those nations. When it's done globally and ongoingly, it will bring about a true and lasting peace. We will put war behind us forever if we just started the principle of sharing. So it all starts with that, and then we would start to build the political structures, the economic structures, the social structures, the healthcare structures, the educational structures that will support that oneness and reinforce it in humanity, to where that over the next 2,000 years, the idea of war, the idea of hunger, the idea of political injustice and injustice of any kind will be unheard of, be unthinkable to even take place at that time. But we have to build the structures to support that. That's why these teachers are, and these, that's why these masters and Maitreya are coming back now to teach us how to build this. Maitreya is not coming to claim that he alone can bring about peace, like so many accuse him of doing, because they don't understand, or they don't even take the time to even read what Benjamin Creme talked about this. But he's saying that humanity has it within itself to bring about peace. It only takes sharing. He says without sharing there could be no justice. Without justice there could be no peace. Without peace there could be no future. And the Marshall Plan is evidence that that is true, that by sharing the resources, it will bring about justice among the nations that do it, and it will eventually bring about peace. But he's talking about doing it globally, so that's where that fits in. Now, hopefully that kind of answers that question, because it's so broad to talk about, but hopefully that helps. All right, now the next questions. Where is it? Oh, okay. Lauren R. wrote, hi, on one of your videos, you said we could buy water from a well that was blessed by Maitreya. Can you refer me to the link to where I can buy it? Thanks. And I replied to the comment directly to Lauren, but I'm doing this for others who maybe have the same question. In every one of the videos, I have links to all these different things. One of the links is to Ainsworths Pharmacy. Now, you can't get the water itself, but you can get the water in tablet form or cream form. Now, what she's asking about, okay, is the healing waters of Tlacote, Mexico, northern Germany, and India are one of the many miracle signs that have gone on over the past few decades. There was a 60-minute article about it. You can actually go and still see the old 60 Minutes article on YouTube where they went down to Tlacote, Mexico, and interviewed the rancher, talked to his ranching hands and all the millions of people that have come there over the years that have been healed from this water. But you don't need to go to Mexico. In fact, I don't think you can at this moment in time. I think they closed it off, perhaps for what's been going on in Mexico and how unstable it is. But you can still get the water from Mexico by going to Ainsworths Pharmacy. And that's the link in the description. Now, the water itself was not blessed by Maitreya. It was charged from the Aquarian constellation, or the constellation of Aquarius, really. And what happened was, let me just tell you a little bit about this. So when Maitreya started to make more of an approach to humanity, starting in the late 80s, he started to appear out of the blue in front of all different types of religious groups. Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Jews, and those kind of things. And he did it on a weekly basis for some time, for many years. And he would appear as they were awaiting their awaited teacher to appear. And the most famous was actually written up in the Kenyan Times. You can actually see a video if you search Maitreya on YouTube, or Maitreya Maitreya's visit, or something like this. You can see videos that of the 60 Minutes or the BBC or whatever it was that went down to interview her, where she talked about this. But Maitreya appeared out of the blue in front of 5,000 or so fundamentalist Christians at her church, spoke in perfect Swahili for about 15 to 20 minutes, and there were hundreds of miracle cures that happened during that time. They all saw him as Jesus come back. So the famous picture of Maitreya with the white headdress and the blue band, that's how Maitreya's group saw Jesus coming back. Maitreya does not believe in, or when she was alive, she did not believe in any of this. She didn't believe in who Maitreya was. She was utterly convinced that was Jesus that saw her. But it was Maitreya in a guise. And I read an article coming from one of these masters a few videos ago. I can't remember exactly which one it was. I do apologize. Where he said that when Maitreya is out known for who he is after the Day of Declaration, there'll be more and more people that were in attendance during these prayer gatherings that would start to come out and talk about their experience. But right now they're not saying anything. Like I said, the most famous, well-known one was the one in Nairobi, and they talked about it quite openly. Each time that he appeared before a group, a well was charged with these healing qualities from the energy of Aquarius. And eventually there will be close to 800 of these wells found all over the world. So we won't have to travel very far to get the water. And over the coming time, the water of these wells will start to have more and more healing qualities, more and more potent ties. But right now, the best and most efficient way for us to get it, until Maitreya starts to make his presence even more known, and these wells start to be more known for, being healing wells and so forth, because they won't be discovered until Maitreya wants them to be discovered. But anyway, is just to go to the Ainsworths Pharmacy. But it's an incredible miracle. And I've used the cream, I've used the tablets for years and found the benefits of it. And if you watch the 60 Minutes article about the healing wells, you'll see that there were people being cured from anything from AIDS to cancers to diabetes to heart conditions, all sorts of illnesses, aches and pains, joint problems, arthritis, all sorts of stuff. And it's all a part of the waters of life. The symbol for the age of Aquarius is the water carrier. So that's that these waters of life are. It's one of the many miracle signs. So thank you for that. Now, the next question that Lauren asked was asking about who and what Benjamin Creme. She said, do you mind telling me who Benjamin Creme is? Well, Benjamin Creme, unfortunately, has passed away. I knew Benjamin Creme for years. I met him in 97, and I went to a conference every year in San Francisco where he put on a conference along with the Share National Group in the summertime every year. And so I got a chance to really get to know him. I had at least one lunch with him every weekend. I would get enough nerve to sit down and talk to him about something or whatever. And, I was fortunate enough to drive him around when he was here in Atlanta. He gave 2 lectures in the late 90s, in 97 and 98, and I was the one that the group here wanted to drive him around. I had the free time, I was available, so I drove him, and I'll never trade that time with him for anything. But he was who he was for me was a wonderful man, a mentor, and someone who I admired quite a bit. I didn't really, appreciate him perhaps every single time I saw him, because he used to say things, in reference to my questions to me that perhaps I didn't like. But as the time goes on and I look back at some of the things that he said and how he said it, it kind of comes into focus better and it makes more sense. And he was probably right about some of the things that he said about me, and I've learned from it and I've grown from it. But he was an artist who was born in 1922, and you can read more about him on Share International. You can see the videos about who Benjamin Creme was, and hear his words and so forth, and feel his energy too through these videos. But he was born in 1922, and he became involved in this work in the 50s when someone approached him that he had never seen before in London on the street, and told him that one of the masters was trying to make contact with him and send him messages, and they were bouncing off of him. And he said, "Oh, there's no way," because he wasn't looking for any kind of contact with these masters. He wasn't desiring any kind of contact. He didn't even think he would be the right person for the job. But this person made contact with him, and then not long after that, his master, he did whatever the guy told him to do, and his master was able to communicate through him, and it's kind of started from there. And then Maitreya asked him personally to play an important role in his coming, and he agreed to do that. And so for the years that he was alive and he was talking about this, he worked tirelessly, moment to moment, hours on end to get this information out there. He was a man of peace. He was a man that wanted to see the end of hunger. And of course, because of his own contacts and his own his own personal experiences, knew exactly who and what Maitreya is and what these masters mean for humanity. But the information about these masters has long been forgotten from the minds of humanity. There was a time when they were actually working with humanity directly. It's just been eons since then. And we talk about it, and you can read about why they retreated the way that they did, and humanity eventually forgot about these masters by going to the Share International website. I don't have to rehash that, but anyway, he was one of the people who chose to bring the information about the masters to the public. But he had a moment-to-moment connection with one of these masters. He never named the master that he worked with. Eventually his name will be known once Maitreya is out, known for who he is, but he said he was a senior member of the hierarchy of masters of this planet, and his name is well known within esoteric circles, is all he was willing to say. But the information, especially if you read the articles that Benjamin Creme wrote coming from his master, there's a quality to that information that you don't really get from people who claim to channel these masters. And if you go to the Share International website and you read some of the stuff, and you read these articles from these masters, and you read the way that he even answered these questions that people asked him, and they were published in Share International, you can see what I'm talking about. But he was quite an extraordinary man, but very much misunderstood. And just as Maitreya is being misunderstood as the Antichrist, he's perhaps not viewed as the Antichrist, but maybe one of his henchmen, I guess, is where they would kind of look at Benjamin Creme. But an interesting story about this, about paranoia and religious paranoia about this information, was the group in Atlanta that I was a part of put on a lecture, and Benjamin Creme came from London and talked to several hundred people at this venue that we put on. And the venue was actually at this mall. It was I can't remember the name of the mall, but it was up in Gwinnett County somewhere, and it was kind of like a new agey mall, but they had a conference room that you could fit several hundred people, that kind of stuff. But it was just a conference room in a mall. I was actually responsible for the sound and the lighting. And the light in the sound was just a soundboard and some speakers. And the only reason why I was responsible for it, because I'm a musician and I had a musician buddy that we rented the system from. So I was the one that hooked up the mics and all that kind of stuff. And then it would be kind of natural that I would be the one responsible for the lighting, because I was sitting right next to the lights. So Benjamin Creme, at the end of his lectures, would always have a blessing come from Maitreya. Maitreya would overshadow him, and Maitreya would bless everyone in attendance. And Benjamin Creme wanted the lighting to be dim during this time. Not totally off, but just dim. So he just said, Gary, just when I nod my head to you or whatever the indication was, just turn the lights down. And before the lecture, he told me how many lights he wanted turned down and which ones he wanted left up, so I remembered it. So when time came, he gave me the nod. I leaned back and I turned the lights down. And it was just a kind of a twilighty kind of light in the room, and he gave a blessing out to the crowd. Maitreya did, not Benjamin Creme. And there was a fundamentalist Christian there. I just remember his last name was Youngblood, and he had a website, which websites weren't really that big at that time, but he had a website out talking about trying to expose Maitreya as the Antichrist, just the same way people try to do today. And apparently he actually saw a golden energy around Ben. I didn't see it. I was sitting in the same room. He saw it. I didn't. And was utterly convinced that we had put in this sophisticated type of lighting system to fool him and others into thinking that Benjamin Creme had some kind of spiritual, thing going on. And that was, we must have spent, $50,000, $100,000 on this lighting system. I can't remember exactly how much he thought it was. Well, the lighting system was me leaning back in the chair and turning the lights off. I know that for a fact, because that had to do with me, right? And the group that I was involved with had very little money. In fact, most of the money was just contributed by the 5 or 6 members that were involved in putting on the lecture, to getting out advertisements and renting the room and so forth. So we didn't have a huge budget, and we certainly didn't have any kind of special technology about lighting. It was, like I said, it was just me turning the lights down for Ben. But he saw this golden light, which Benjamin Creme eventually said it was actually, he saw the blessing there. So it's just how we react. It's, it's the truth, that we see it. And then if we're either scared, if we're afraid, well, then we become more afraid. If we're hopeful, we'll become more hopeful people, that kind of thing. So hopefully that helps. All right. But thank you for the questions. And of course, thank you for the comment. And I look forward to talking to you again.
Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.